Go ahead.
Well, you asked me how I got started in baseball. Well, it seemed like back when I was just an early teenager, Harold Kahn and I would get out and throw a ball with each other. I didn't have a ball glove till I was about 15, and where I'd hold corn for people and everything, $1.29 in the Sears and Roebuck catalog, they had a ball glove. I saved up my money, make where I made a nickel an hour, saved it up and bought my first baseball glove when I was about 15. And Harold Kahn and I would get out, and we didn't have a real baseball. We'd had to have a cork of a baseball and wrap old black tape around it, and we'd throw it. And I noticed I could throw a ball and it would just curve every which way, curve every which way. So as I got a little older, they'd pick up little teams around there and this and that. When I was 15 or 16, they'd come and pay me $10 a game back in the 40s to come and pitch for them. Now, in 1949, the Drift, Kentucky Turner Elkhorn Mining Company built a baseball park and put in light where they could play night baseball. And Harold Kahn went over, my cousin, he was older than I, and he made the team. They formed it called the Elkhorn League, about 8 teams in it, some in West Virginia. And Harold told me, he says, "Won't you come over? You might make the team and get a uniform." Well, I went over there and made one of their best pitchers I was about 18 years old. And they gave me a job and then paid me $25 a game in addition to my real good paying job. I thought I was rich making that kind of money. Well, there was a bird dog scout around there that was a friend of mine, Joe Weddington. He was a scout for the Cleveland Indians. He'd played some baseball. And he got me a tryout at the Cleveland Indians spring training in Daytona Beach. I went down there and they sent me to their farm club at Alabama, Enterprise, Alabama. Enterprise, Alabama had a big statue of a boll weevil right downtown, 10 feet tall. And a lot of people want to know, it's the only city or town in the world that's got a statue erected and dedicated to a boll weevil, a pest.
Now, you are a left-handed pitcher, right?
Yeah.
So what?
A left-handed pitcher, and I was a low ball hitter and a high ball drinker.
So what kind of nicknames did you have as a left-handed pitcher?
Well, they said they came up and asked me if I did, when they'd put a write-up in the paper, if I mind being called a Kentucky hillbilly, from the hills of Kentucky where the moonshine goes and the feds try to catch people for moonshining, making moonshine whiskey. You don't mind if we call you Hillbilly Joe, do we? I said, heck no, call me whatever you want to.
Then in looking in the scrapbook that your family put together, and then Mom memorialized into a different type of book, I think I saw articles in there that talked about
Bees tackle Hillbilly Joe.
Hillbilly Joe and then Lefty Joe.
Yeah.
Tell me about where you went to school.
I went to grade school, schoolhouse up on a hill. It was one room, but it had a divider in it. Okay, one room school. And I went up there and to that school. And our drinking water, originally when the school was built, they had a pump. The pump went bad and they never replaced it, so they'd go off. Two boys would go get drinking water from people's wells down at the bottom of the hill.
So about what year?
But I found this was back in
30s?
I was in the 30s during the Depression. And the boys told me later, after they grew up a little bit, they'd go bring the water back in a water bucket with a dipper, and we'd all drink out of the same dipper, no paper cups. If one was sick, we all were going to catch the sickness. But they told me later, as we became adults, what they don't know.
So, give me an idea of one of your favorite moments while you played baseball.
Okay, 1953, we were league champions. It was like the best one that won 4 games out of 7 first was the champion.
And what team was this?
This is Albuquerque Dukes in 1953. We were champions, and that's the year I won 28 games, and I won 3 in the playoffs. I think that's what ruined my arm, my pitching arm. And I pitched the championship game and won it, and we ended up league champions. And we went out, the team played for us, the manager paid for us all going out that night and having a big steak dinner and drinks and everything on the team, celebrate.
And what year was this?
1951.
Okay.
I made the All-Star team, and the Cleveland Indians bought me. Major League Cleveland Indians bought me and sent me to one of their farm clubs next year in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Went down there and won 16 games and made the All-Star team in that league.
So, did you have any relief pitchers, or did you play game after game after game?
We had relief pitchers. We had 18 players on the team. Most of them been pitchers. Then he tried to have 2 catchers, 2 first basemen or whatever, and 2 outfielders for each position. Well, I went to Albuquerque, made the All-Star team, and then they sold me to Oakland, California, in the Pacific Coast League, next to the major leagues. I went to spring training with Oakland and had a sore arm all during spring training and couldn't even throw a bat in practice, so they sent me back to Albuquerque in 1953. Well, in 53, I had a record-setting year in Albuquerque. Had the most strikeouts for any pitcher that ever pitched at Albuquerque, and they had been in professional ball several years. Got every vote for the All-Star team, and I was a starting and winning pitcher in 53 at Albuquerque. I pitched the first 3 innings were scoreless. I got the win.
Who were some of the famous baseball players that you played with?
Well, then from Albuquerque, I went on up to the next year. I went to Class A ball. I went to the 3I League, and I played for Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I'll be darned. In that league, we had Roger Maris that broke the home run record of Babe Ruth. He had 61 home runs, and a few years later for the New York Yankees. I pitched against him 2 games that year, and he went hitless in 6 times at bat. Got the great Roger Maris, never got a hit off of me in 2 games. And so after that year, the Chicago Cubs, bought me, and I went to spring training with them. Well, in 1955 now, they sent me to Macon, Georgia, Mutual Network, and it was broadcast from coast to coast, and I beat the Columbia Redlegs that had Frank Robinson, a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer on their club. I beat them 6-2, went the distance. And my manager, who played in the big league several years, voted for me for the All-Star team, but he said, "Joe, we're a 6th-place club, and you didn't win enough games, I don't think, to be picked for the All-Star team, but I'm voting for you." So I made the All-Star team 4 out of the 5 years that I pitched. In the 5th year, I knew my career was over, because when I was at Albuquerque, I pitched almost 300 innings, didn't have enough ample rest, and it hurt my arm, and my career was over after the 1955 season. Chicago Cubs thought enough of me to take me to spring training with them in Arizona, and they only picked at that time, their top major league prospects, and I was one of them. And I went out there, and I had a sore arm where I'd pitched so much that I just couldn't throw, and I knew my career was over. And I thought I'd go back home and go to Michigan or somewhere and get a job. And my career ended. Your arm takes a big toll throwing curveballs and all this if you don't get sufficient rest in between turns,
About how you met Chuck Connors, the rifleman.
Oh, Chuck Connors. Oh, I forgot to tell you that the Chicago Cubs bought me and sent me to L.A. the next year. in L.A., my arm got to feeling better, and I ended up being a starting pitcher for the Los Angeles Angels. And I met Chuck Connors. He had a TV program. He used to play for the Los Angeles Angels before he got into the movies. And he interviewed me on his TV show before a game one night, and talking to me about where I'd played and everything. And then he and I, where I met him, he came down to work out with us when we were in spring training, and we went together and asked me if I wanted to go see a double feature movie with him. And we saw Paratrooper with Alan Ladd and Roman Holiday, two great movies. And we became good friends. And after he had me on his TV program.
Now tell me about the game that you pitched. It was a perfect game, but somehow you lost. How can that happen?
Well, it wasn't quite complete. I'd pitched 7 innings, and a perfect game would be 9 innings. I pitched 7 innings, and not a man had reached base against Peoria. Where 7 innings, not a guy had reached first base. But the weakest hitter on the team, I started an inning and got 2 balls and no strikes, and I says, oh well. I threw one right down the middle of the plate since I knew he was the weakest hitter, and hit it over the left field fence. Then I slipped and fell trying to feel a ball. My feet went out from under me, and the guy got on first base. And then they ended up scoring 3 runs, and they only got one hit away from a perfect game, and I lost the game.
What year was this? Do you remember?
That was 1954 when I played against Roger Maris and Louis Aparicio and Norm Cash, all 3 Hall of Famers. One day at Albuquerque, I was a good hitting pitcher. They used me as a pinch hitter, when we needed more strength up at the plate. And I hit over 300, which is considered excellent in any league, over 300, and knocked in 38 runs as a pinch hitter and pitcher. And the television station called me and wanted to know if I'd come down and be a guest on their TV program. Says, dress in your uniform and bring a baseball bat, because we want you to tell us how you swing the bat and how you deliver the ball when you pitch. And they interviewed me. I guess I was a guest for 30 minutes on their sports program at Albuquerque. And another time, when I was in the league with Roger Maris at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, they had me during the daytime as a guest, and they were advertising the 7-Up float, kind of made out of like ice cream or something. And they said during the interview, said they had a commercial. Said, "Well, Joe, would you like to during our commercial here? Would you like to taste our 7-Up float?" And they handed me the glass or the bottle. I took a big drink of that 7-Up float, and I looked right into the camera. I said, folks, you don't know what you're missing. This is a great drink, this 7-Up float,